Hey there, and welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal Network. I am Dave Does, one of your hosts, and welcome to the Tales from the Underground series, normally done by Kirk, but I do them occasionally. Today, we are joined by Matt and Burton from By Virtue Fall. Hi, Matt. Hi, Burton. How are you today?
Hey, Dave. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all.
Thanks very
Good.
Much. Recovering from last night.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're out. You were playing with, was it
Black
Orchid Empire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I swear we did a review. We've either interviewed, I think Kirk's interviewed Black Orchid Empire.
They were a really nice bunch of guys. Yeah.
I can't remember. We interviewed a lot of people, so I get to the point at a certain point and go, did we interview them or didn't we? Someone's interviewed him in our group, but yes, I'm sure he did Black Orchid Empire a couple of months ago. So the show went well.
Yeah, it was really cool, actually. It was really cool. It was nice to see the guys live, and they put on a great show, and it was a pretty good turnout in the end.
For a Wednesday night in Norwich on a venue that's not directly in the city was a great turnout. Yeah, can't really ask any more than that, really.
Midweek shows are always a challenge. To be honest, weekend shows are a challenge half the times nowadays. Yeah, it's I think, to be honest, with the sheer number of bands out there that are regularly gigging, and we only realised it. We didn't think there was that many people actually gigging as often as they were until we started following so many bands, because obviously we do these video reviews and stuff like that. So we're like, we'll add you, we'll follow you. And then we're like, every day, just hundreds of posts come through about gigs that are on. And I'm like, how the hell is there enough people to actually attend these shows? But we will get to that, I'm sure, as we talk about the challenges in this day and age. But a few questions I would like to get out of the way that have my generics are... We're going to talk about, before we talk about the origins of the band, etc., because we need to cover that off for anyone that doesn't know. I like to get the band name out of the way. So I love to know origins of the band name. Where did it come from? So By Virtue Fall, I'll hand this over to you. Tell us about the band name.
Right, it's you one.
Okay, it's a me one, is it? It's essentially, it's part of a line from a Shakespeare play, Measure for Measure. And the full line is, some men rise by sin and others by virtue fall, or something like that. It's an excerpt from a scene in that play, basically, and we just thought it was like a really cool idea, to be honest. That some people they have good things happen to them, but it actually does them in, and sometimes you can be really evil and get everything you want out of life, and that just kind of stuck with us as a cool, interesting kind of take on of the world, I guess, and all the way back from Shakespeare. So he was thinking about that sort of stuff all the way back when. And obviously, it sounds cool when you say it. To be honest,
it is a good name. Anyone that's seen our channel knows that I'm absolutely ruthless when I slag off band names. If they're stupid, they have no purpose, and they don't tell you anything about the name or like the context of a band. So like making a name up like the Martians wet underpant mice fart, or so it could be anything, and it's just some random thing. You're like, what the hell is that? That's not going to encourage me to go, I want to check this band out. But when I come across your band name, I was like, that's okay, I'm going to go metalcore was my first thing. Before I ever heard you, I was like, sounds like a metalcore band.
There you go, it did its job.
And you're more than just a metalcore band, but you've got a lot of metalcore elements in there.
Not only have we ripped off the quote for the band name, we've also ripped off the quote for the EP name as well. So we kind of used the whole thing in our whole thing at the moment in time.
Because were you sitting there when you were coming up with the band name, and there's just someone there like reading Shakespeare, just going, "I have an idea. Look at this quote."
Way before my time. This.
Yeah, it was way before.
It is a random thing. You have to have at least been looking at Shakespeare. So was there someone that was covering this from a university course or some sort of element like that that came across, or were you just reading some Shakespeare for the sheer hell of it?
Did you know what it was? One of the other bands that influences a few of the members is Lamb of God, and I've always really enjoyed Randy Blythe's lyrics, and they've got this kind of biblical kind of tone to them for the most part. I was just kind of looking for source material that might give me some ideas, and Shakespeare was one of those source materials essentially. And yeah, just because reading through it, looking at some of the ideas in some of the plays and thinking, can any of this be linked to us and our ideas of what's behind the music? And yeah, it just stuck out, to be honest. So
were there any other names that were close to contenders that were kind of like not jotted around and batted around going, that's not a bad name, that could be possible, and then just got tossed to the side?
There were many names that were suggested. I cannot remember any of them offhand now. It was so long ago. We're talking probably like 8 or 9 years ago when we came up with this name. And yes, there were lots and lots of names thrown around. There were lists and lists of names, and it was a case of like, a bunch here might be in the maybe pile, and a load of went in the bin straight away. Some people, thought they'd have a good idea, and it turned out that nobody else in the band would like it, so they would go straight in the bin. And we did kind of throw it around for a long time, to be honest, until we sort of landed on that.
So talk about the origins of the band then. So how did this band come together?
Yeah, that's probably a me question as well. So the band's gone through a few different revisions over the years, I suppose. We first started probably about 8 or 9 years ago, in this kind of current form as By Virtue Fall. Before that, a few of us were in a different band called Silenced by Shadows. We were even older, and that was a little bit more kind of, I guess, emo rock influenced in places. It's quite heavy Funeral for a Friend influence in places, and we were just starting to kind of experiment with getting sort of heavier sound and writing heavier songs. And we decided that needed a rebrand essentially to suit the different kind of sound and different direction that we were going in. And we had myself. I came in basically in the band that was prior to By Virtue Fall, so I was there for the rebrand. Traff, our rhythm guitarist / lead guitarist, he prefers to be the rhythm guitarist. He was one of the original members as well. And then our other guitarist David was in the band at that time, but he then left the band. He had personal reasons, time needed spending on other things for him, and he had to leave the band. So we played with a different guitarist and a different bassist as By Virtue Fall to what we have now for the most part. And then COVID hit and the bottom fell out of everything. Our bassist moved to Holland, so we had to seek some new members. Matt, you came in kind of just before COVID hit, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, so I think I joined September 2019. My daughter was born in November of 2019, and then COVID hit in the February. So we kind of like, I was on and off being in and out of practice for a good few months. And then obviously the old COVID, and that kind of just ruined everything for us for a little while, didn't
it? Yeah. And then after COVID, we had our first show. I think it was at the B2 at the Brickmakers in Norwich.
Brickfest.
It was Brickfest. Yeah, it was Brickfest. Brickfest was our first gig after COVID. And then shortly after that, our guitarist at the time, Bon Grubb, decided that he needed to leave the band as well. And it just so happened that David was then kind of available and interested in being in a...
Was it not a month before Metal to the Masses last year that he decided to leave?
It was, yeah. So he didn't leave us with a lot of notice before the Metal to the Masses. And as I say, our old bassist, Merrick, he had to move to Holland as well for work. And again, we sort of like instantly thinking, who can we get to replace Merrick? And Matt Gamble, our current bassist, had been in bands. We'd been on the circuit with him in different bands, and we'd always known he was a really well-rounded musician and a great bassist. And Traff reached out to him and just said, "Hey dude, you interested?" And he was just like, "Yeah, I'll come down." And he sort of put his feelers out to see if he would enjoy it or not. And he's still here, so I guess he must be still enjoying it.
Gets in the way on stage.
Yeah, he does. He's a great guy to have on stage. He likes to jump around a lot, and he has long hair that he loves to swish about. And he's a good laugh on stage. But yeah, so that's that lineup that we have now was basically solidified a few months before the Metal to the Masses competition. And and then we played that and were extremely privileged to win it and play Bloodstock Festival, and that's kind of catapulted us onto the journey that we're on currently, essentially.
Because was this the first time? First time as a band that you've done the Metal to the Masses competition, or had you done it before? And obviously, had you guys done Metal to Masses historically? Because it has been around for quite a while.
So this was obviously this is the second year that I've done it with By Virtue Fall, or last year was the second year I done it with By Virtue Fall. But obviously the first year we done it with our current lineup. So it was like, as we said, it was very quick turnaround from having Bond leaving to Royce starting. That we had this sort of, it might have been 2 months, but this sort of mass chaos for 2 months of, right, we've got to find a new guitarist, teach them all the songs, and get on stage and perform all these songs very quickly. And we weren't expecting to go through the first round. Then we got through that. I weren't expecting to go through the second round. Then we got to the final. And we were like, oh, great. Our guitarist is on holiday because we weren't expecting to get through. So now what do we do? Lucky enough that there's only down the road on holiday. So we managed to sort that out. I mean, I've done it 3 times before, I think, with the previous bands. And I know at least 2 of those attempts of us doing it, I was against either Science by Shadows or By Virtue Fall. So I've known these guys for years, and it's always been good fun. I think it's one of those things that every local band needs to experience at one point in their life, because it's a networking opportunity. And if I hadn't done things like that, I wouldn't have been playing with them now. So it's nice. It's been very nice.
Yeah, no, we did it. So I've done it twice with By Virtue Fall. So the first year we did it was before Matt joined the band, and then we did that with our previous vocalist Damon. And prior to that, I played. I think I played the competition twice before in different bands. I think we did it. We did it as the previous band, Silenced by Shadows. That at the same time, I was in a different band called Dead Until Dusk, and we were both in the same competition, and we both got to the same semi-final, I think. And then actually, I think we got to the same final, and we played against each other in the final of that competition. But I was in both bands, so I didn't have to change my drums over halfway through, which was quite nice. But it was, it was interesting because they were 2 quite different bands as well. So I had to kind of compartmentalize my playing into 2 different styles, one immediately after the other, which was pretty interesting. But yeah, I've got great memories of the Metal to the Masses competitions, regardless of how we did as a band in them. They're always really great local shows, and always a great way of just getting out and hearing who's playing music locally and who's coming up with interesting things and who's still out there grinding in the local scene.
There's a lot of us.
Yeah, there are.
Still going. I did it. I can't remember what year it was, 2012, 2011. I don't know. Somewhere between 2008 and 2013, I would have done Metal to the Masses at some point. I did it at Club 85 one time, and I've done it at Kadama. Not Kadama, so thinking about Kadama the other day. Nambuka in London.
Heard of it.
London Heats. I can't remember where it is, but I remember it back in the day there and playing the Heats there. But so talk about actually then I'm sure you've already talked about it in many occasions, but obviously when you finally you win your final, you're then going on to you're playing Bloodstock, you're on the New Blood stage. Big difference to the setup that you would normally have, as far as you've now got people supporting there, you've got people changing over, you've got the press elements of it. And then as a musician yourself, we know when you're playing like a show, you're doing a headline show, or even if you're just playing your own venue, stuff like that, your whole day, you're just thinking about that gig. You're thinking about what your stage show is going to be, your performance. So sometimes you're almost thinking, I want to be the first band on because I've got the nerves of it and I want to blast out that first set and then relax the rest of the evening versus being a headliner. Now, I can imagine if you're doing New Blood, first of all, what day were you playing?
We played Friday.
Which day?
Friday morning.
Oh, well, you got lucky then. So you get in there.
So lucky.
So I've spoken to bands that were doing it, and they were there for the whole weekend, and they were playing on the Sunday, and they were like, I couldn't relax the whole weekend because you knew that we were playing on the New Blood stage on the Sunday. So that was my first question. So were you there for the whole weekend? And then, how was it? How was the whole experience of doing Bloodstock?
I think the getting there, the build up to it was stressful. We were trying to put out a single at the same time, so we had like people that were coming to see us or wanted to see us had something to listen to prior to coming to see us play. So we had that stress to start off with. We got that out, and it was really well received, which was really nice. And I think the journey there was quite relaxed for me. I was in the back of the van drinking while Burton was driving. But you have to go down the Thursday. Traff and Royce went up in Royce's car with the trailer and all the kit, and then Gamble joined us a bit later on during the day. But I think the Thursday, once we got everything set up, we were kind of quite chill. But the Friday morning, like I think we had this conversation where we sat outside the stage, just stood there, sort of like taking it in, realizing that holy shit, we're about to play on this huge stage on something bigger than we've ever played before in our lives. And
so it was really weird, wasn't it? Because it was like you sort of you get there in the morning and there's just these like security guys, you know, at the arena gates, and we're like, oh, we need to be back there because we're playing on the stage, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, go on then. And it's like, all right, so we go through, and it's just empty arena, and just walking past the stage and just like seeing it without anybody around it, and with
it looks huge, doesn't it, from the outside as well? It looks absolutely huge from the outside, and then when you stand backstage and you're sort of gearing up ready, like we had our own little space where all our stuff was, and we sort of stood there, and the stage crew were talking to us and like telling us what they're going to be doing behind us, and like moving all the stuff around behind us while we're playing, all that sort of jazz. And then you start seeing floods and floods of people coming in for the band on before you, and you're like, oh my god, we've now got to go up and do that in front of all these people. And then we sort of like, they came off stage, we started setting all our stuff up with all the guys there, and you know, it went really quickly. And we sort of turned around and there's kind of no one there. And I think we hit the first couple of notes in our intro, and we just turned around and there's just a sea of people, and this. Like I went from feeling horribly sick and nervous to just having none of that feeling whatsoever, because I was up there doing what I love doing. And then I literally came off stage and I collapsed. Like I laid on the floor and just nearly cried. I spent the whole day feeling like that. I was like, I just want this day to be over with now. Like it's like I played the show, it's cool, but the day can end now. Like I could wake up in my tent tomorrow morning and go, oh, that was a dream. Cool, fine.
But we had to go do press afterwards. So
oh, it was disgusting, wasn't it? Like in the like, there was nowhere in the press area that was shady either. It was just sun beating down on us the whole time, and we just like I'm still there in long trousers and like a fishnet shirt, and you know, trying to look as rock star as possible, thinking, oh my god, I need a cold drink or ice cream or something because I'm dying.
It was roasting. But yeah, it was a really incredible experience, especially from like my point of view as a drummer. Obviously, I have a lot of equipment that I normally need to move around, and it's normally my job to do it all. And occasionally, I get some help from the other band members, but they've got their own stuff they need to set up. So, you know, and I you know, I'm not fortunate enough to have my own drum tech or anything like that yet. But
I do help.
Yeah, you do help. That's fair. I've got to be fair to you. You do help. But yeah, it was really interesting, and just an incredible experience to have like those experienced people there, just like telling you, yep, this is how it's going to work, and you know, you sort of instantly know that you can trust them. You know, not only just like, you know, trust them with your gear, but you trust them to bring it on stage in a timely manner and put it in the right place, and you know, it's just going to be there when you get on stage. That was one of the more, you know, eye-opening moments for me. I think was just that was what it was kind of like to be just a musician when you sort of you turn up and play. You know, everything's there sorted for you, and it was a nice little taste of that kind of experience, I think.
I mean, did either of you ever have the fear? This is the thing that I would always go through my head, that you've done this, you've done your Metal to the Masses final. The finals are always packed out, which is great. So you end up playing to great crowds at the end of the Metal to the Masses final. Then you go to these festivals and you go, we're playing on a bill on a stage, and it's all the new bands, it's all the bands that have won their Metal to the Masses, and there are other bands playing on these big stages. What if no one comes into our tent when we're playing? Did that go through your head? Because that would go through my head. I'd be going, please pack it out. Please just be there. Lots of people there, because I don't want to come out there and go, there's like 20 people in a tent here. This is not good. Did either of you two feel that way beforehand?
100%.
Yeah, I think we kind of all stood there, didn't we? When the band that's playing before us had this sea of people. And then, like I said, we turned around. We put our stuff on stage. There's kind of no one there. Everyone had left when they finished playing. And then as soon as we started playing, this like it just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew and grew to the point where we were looking out. I was looking out the sort of tent door. And it was still going, and we're like, "Holy crap!" Like we're this band from Norwich that no one's really heard before. The whole front row was people from Norwich as well, which is really cool. There's my family were in the mosh pit. My auntie was in the mosh pit. First ever mosh pit in my life, in our mosh pit. I know we had like Bert and your wife was there. Guitarist Royce, his wife was there, with the kids as well. So it was nice to be able to have like our family, our friends, all there that we could see in amongst this sea of people. But I think it just went out of the door, and it was just unbelievable.
It was crazy because we started playing the set, and my one thing that hadn't gone quite to plan with the kit setup experience was I hadn't really checked before I started playing how close my right leg was to the floor tom, and we started playing that song, and I'm using the kick pedals, and every time I'm doing a downstroke with my right leg, I'm hitting my knee, cracking my knee on the side of the floor tom. So I'm kind of preoccupied for the start of the song. I sort of see when we sit down and we're starting the set, there's a few people in there, there's a handful of people in there, and I'm like, oh. And then I'm concentrating, looking down for a while, trying to figure out how I'm going to play correctly with my knee being torn to shreds all the time, just praying there's a break in the song where I can just shift it for a little bit or something like that. And I look back up and the place is full. And when you have like a moment like that, you just go, your adrenaline just peaks, and you're just like, oh, got to make sure I don't speed up now. Like
that's the problem with drummer.
Yeah, exactly. That's always been one of the hardest challenges for me, is when you get excited at a show and it's just being able to hear when you're playing too fast, and you need to, rein it in. It's tricky. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. Really, really incredible experience.
That's it. We'll do again.
Yeah.
I think next will be the next stage up now.
Well, we can hope. We can hope. That would be amazing. I'd be there for that. With bells on.
Even the EMP stage, that one in the middle with the room where the bar was like right next to it. Like that'd be cool because I could play it and get a drink at the same time. Like,
yeah. Mate, I'm up for doing an acoustic set. I'll get my little djembe out and sit.
Mate, on it. They had a full live drum kit, didn't you?
Oh, so okay, I wouldn't.
There's a proper stage. It's just playing up stage. It was like the B2 stage. It's cool.
I want to talk about writing approaches. So I'm always intrigued by bands about how they write in this day and age. Some people are obviously the kind of people that will come into a studio and go, who's got a riff? And someone will just jump in and you'll all just jam it out for 3 hours and come up with a song. Some people are, hi guys, I've written a whole brand new song. Let's all learn it and work out your parts. How do you guys approach writing music?
We're kind of sorry, but we're kind of lucky that we've got both Royce and Trent have got ways of recording at home. So we'll sit there of an evening, have a message pop up on the group chat, and it is just another song that's been written by one of them, or they've found a song from years ago and rewritten it. Reworked. It's just quite nice. It's sent through to the group chat. We all then go, right, okay, that's cool. We'll change this, change that. We try and do like as much pre-production as possible, especially now we're going to writing for an album that we're now writing. We're trying to pre-production it, so we'll go into the studio, learn it, and then go to the practice studio and play it live as a full band. When it comes to lyric writing, I was saying to Bert last night that I wrote a lot of the lyrics just randomly. Like if something comes to me, a line comes to me, I'll write it down, I'll remember it. I'll expand and spiral from there. Depends on my mood, depends on what theme of the song is going to be about, and I'll just try and fit those lyrics around whatever's being written. Yeah, a bit of a tricky one from my point of view, trying to fit stuff in when it's probably easy to write. I'd go along with the melody and the riffs, but I like challenge apparently.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of all of the above, I suppose, because we have gone through phases of how we write over the years. So I've been in the band quite a long time, and it has changed depending on the members in the band, the kind of stuff that we're writing at the time, how inspired some of us are at the time or lack thereof. But yeah, increasingly it falls into a bit of a a little bit of everything. So David and Traff, they might come up with an entire song idea, but it will be something that's not necessarily complete in general. Like they'll still kind of bring it to the table and say, what do you guys think of this? And sometimes it's just like a riff idea. Sometimes we'll go into the studio and just iron out some riff ideas and put some stuff together in the moment and just see what it sounds like. It's kind of easy to do that in the studio because you can just go, I'll move this bit there and see what that sounds like. So that's an interesting way of mucking around with stuff as well. And yeah, quite often it's just the actual musical element of it is quite often a collaboration between Traff, David, and myself. So it's often the three of us come up with like the bones of something. And I play a bit of guitar as well, so especially some of the older stuff that we've got, I've chipped in with a few guitar related ideas, and structural kind of ideas I tend to chip in with a lot as well, because being a drummer, I compartmentalize songs in different movements and sections a lot, but I also do pay quite a lot of attention to, I guess, what you'd call like traditional song structure, and in a way, how do I kind of avoid that or make that a bit more interesting? Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I do.
Yeah, so I'm kind of, I'm interested in that kind of stuff as well. But Traff and David write great riffs, and they come up with some brilliant ideas. So we like to just kind of take that stuff and just massage it a little bit until it's something that everyone's happy with. Gamble will throw an amazing bass line on it that just complements the guitars, and it will evolve a bit in the practice room. The drums usually start off quite basic, and then as we're kind of developing the song, I'll change the drums over time to just better match the feel of the song and give the song kind of what it needs. And Gamble's really good at driving the groove with me, so he'll pick out little bits that he goes, oh yeah, there's a little accent or little groove that you always do at that bit, and that could do with a little bit of something from me as well. And as Matt said, he tends to come up with lyrics in general. He might write full ideas, like with chorus and verses and everything, just based around ideas that he's got. And when we bring the music into the practice room, he'll just kind of do the same thing, massage it and mold it so that it fits with what we've got. And sometimes he doesn't have an idea for something, and again, I might chip in with lyrics as well, because I used to be a bit of a lyricist also. So when Matt gets stuck, I'll try and help him out a little bit occasionally with some lyric lines. Do a bit.
If it doesn't fit, I'll spit on it and shove it in anyway.
One thing you also mentioned you're working on stuff for an album. You've got your EP, Risen by Sin, that came out last month.
Yeah, February 14th it came out.
So one of the questions I've been asking people, which you've kind of answered me by the fact you've put out an EP and you're working on an album, but the world has changed in a lot of cases for bands where people absorb content in bite-sized forms now. So the idea of sitting down and listening to a 10-track or a 12-track album from track 1 to track 12 is hardly anyone really does that anymore. It's a case of Spotify playlists or other streaming service playlists and dropping singles. So a lot of bands, when we've spoken to them historically, have said, well, we're not really going to do albums anymore, because what we're going to just do is we will release singles every couple of months throughout the year, and we'll just keep working on singles. And then at a certain point, once we've hit probably 8 or 9 singles, we will probably then put them down under a collection that will be called the album, but we'll have released them all as singles. Not something I'm a fan of personally, but because I like the idea of a body of work of an album that was written as an album, where all the songs were from a period that was a context, rather than something that's been written over a 2-year period of individual songs without any kind of thought process and then just thrown together. But what about you guys with albums, singles, releasing content, understanding how do you do it in this day, and knowing that obviously LPs, CDs, stuff like that, there is a growing trend for them, but they are pretty much gone the way of the dodo, as they say at the moment.
No, they sort of have, haven't they? It's, to be fair, it's something that we had to learn how to navigate. It was, not a problem we'd faced before. This is the first time that we've had these song ideas, and we've been a band in various forms for years. But this was the first opportunity we had to actually like record something, put something together to a high standard, and release it. And yeah, this was something that we came up against and had to navigate. And to be honest, I think our manager A.D.K was pretty instrumental and helpful in getting us to understand what the right course of action would be for that sort of thing. And in the end, I think we've kind of got we went with a slightly sort of halfway house approach, I guess. So we ended up releasing 2 singles, and then we then just kind of released the rest of the EP as it was with those 2 singles on it. But now we're thinking about actually, based on, funnily enough, how popular one of the other tracks on the EP has been on TikTok recently, that we're probably going to have to drop that as an additional single. And the thought occurred to me. I was just like, well, what's maybe the point in doing that, because it's already out there on the EP. People can already listen to it if they want to. Like, is dropping it as a single, does that make sense? And yeah, kind of the same thing. That's old school thinking. I guess, back in the day, you would release your single, you might release like a couple of singles, then you kind of make the full record readily available, and then the other songs off that record, if they got really popular and they were in the charts and they were being played on the radio, then you might call that a single. But you don't get the radio hits anymore. It's not a thing anymore. No. So it kind of flipped my perspective on its head a little bit in terms of what we do with it. But
I think the issue is like we've come from that generation where we would first hear a song on the radio, and the only way to actually be able to listen to it personally, we need to be able to go and buy the single. Yeah. With the other couple of songs on it, or the EP, or the album. That's the only way to listen to things. So I think we're still kind of stuck in that generation of that's how we should be listening to music, is on an album. Whereas I think we're so used to social media now, and there's so much sort of like everyone wants something quick nowadays. You don't want to be stuck listening to stick with one thing. We all take content in so differently. But I think the way people are listening to music nowadays, like you said, is just they put a playlist on and listen to that playlist, and if the songs go up on it, you go, oh, I like that, I'll check out the rest of that, sort of thing. Yeah. I know I'm guilty of it now. Like, I do try and listen to
don't worry. It's the hand of God just doing that.
She's trying to show me a gummy skull sweetie thing. It's great, really distracting. I mean, I can't wait for the new Ghost album to come out, and I will listen to that from start to finish, track to track, without skipping a single track in it. But when it comes to other stuff, like I said, I'll listen to stuff just on a playlist, because it's easy to listen to and you don't get bored so easily. But I think this is why we need to release, like you said, bands will release singles throughout the year. I don't want to release one every month for a year, but I'd be happy releasing like maybe 3 before the album comes out, but like every couple of months put another single out. So you've got time to build that hype and then drop another single, and then hopefully that builds up that hype for the album at the end of that cycle, in theory. But then
it's a huge challenge.
Who's going to be. It is, but you don't know who's going to like what song. So we've been very surprised with the drop of the EP over what people have liked. Like, we assumed that the one song that we released first, Abandon Hope, was going to be the most liked song from everybody because we like it so much, or liked it so much. But that seems to have just faded. And now Blindsided, which wasn't released as a single, is now going to be re-released as a single because people have just blown up over it. It's very weird how people perceive it, I think.
Yeah. It was interesting for me because we deal a lot with PR. So I know Andy as well because he does the Suffolk and Metal radio show. He did that on the A.D.K for a bit before we shut that down. And he's off doing that with Moshfield Radio, I think, now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've spoken to him about this, and I've spoken to other PR people. And one of the things that was really interesting talking to him about PR is if you've got 8 songs on an album, 10 songs on an album, they go, if you drop them all as singles, you've got 8 chances of promoting. You do 2 singles and drop an album. If you've dropped the album and it's already out there, and it doesn't matter if you go and release the next 6 as singles, because the problem you've got is the song's already out there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the advertising and the rock zines and the metal zines will go, the song's already out there. We're not going to bother promoting it because it's already, people can already get it. And we did exactly the same with Tell Us Scribe. The only thing that we did, we dropped 8 months in a row. We had 8 songs on the album. We did a video single for every song, and we did 8 months in a row, and then had them all on streaming. But what we did do is after the first single, we put the physical CD available to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have the whole album if you like from month one. You can't have the streaming of any of the songs until we release them as singles.
That's not a bad shout, actually.
And that boosted physical media sales because if you wanted it, or you could buy the MP3 downloads. So you could buy the MP3 and have the whole album in one go, or you could just wait for it to come off on streaming, but you'd have to wait 8 to 9 months until it was all available on streaming. And that did help because there were people that went, it's your debut album. Yeah, we want it. So we'll buy that and we'll buy the MP3 downloads and we'll do that because we want the album. And we had to keep a lookout for people trying to upload it up onto our music onto socials. But it was an interesting way. But yeah, PR I think it is also driven by PR a lot now because they want to give you 8 chances or 10 chances to promote. So once an album's out, it's out and you can't do anything more about it and you've lost that album. You've got to start working on the next one. I've got a couple of last questions to talk about. So I have to ask, craziest thing that's happened at a show to date?
You go, Matt.
I have no idea.
And remember, you have your daughter's in the room, so there's only certain things you can say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I honestly, I don't really know.
To be honest, I think my craziest moment would be the pit at Bloodstock with the giant pink dinosaur in the middle of it.
And it was clockwise, anti-clockwise. It was the opposite way to most mosh pits, anyway. Like,
you made a big thing out of it. So Matt was just like, no, go the other way to the crowd, and the crowd was just like, what the fuck? Like, what? How do we do this?
How do we go the opposite direction?
Yeah.
It was a thing apparently. Nobody goes that way around when
everyone
they do
goes clockwise.
Yeah. So that was that was pretty mad.
That's about the only moment I can think of at this moment in time of a crazy moment. Yeah.
So, last question then for you guys. So, what's the plan going forward? Because I know you're with Metal Vision Records. You've got your EP has just come out. You've got some single stuff going on. You've already done the Bloodstock Metal to the Masses. You can't really kind of go through that whole thing. And I always talk to bands about this going, that's great. If you talk about the big ladder of rising up, you're on ladder like 2 now. So you're on rung 2. You've done that big thing. Most bands don't even get to run 1 in the local scene. You're kind of just playing your local gigs. So you've got to that one. How do you then get up that ladder? How do you go up? So what's the plan for the next 12 months?
Sorry, Ron, go jump in here. I think it's a lot of networking we've done with various people that either have contacts for venues or contacts of bands that want to gig with us. Obviously, and being on board with Andy as well is really helping. He's networking. He's looking out there all the time for shows for us. So it's just, I think it's worked closely with the people that we already know, and work closely with people that we're making new contacts with, and sort of jam them together and hope we can make some sort of big plan out of it in the long run.
Yeah, and then we've also got the plans, having signed to Metal Vision, obviously, we've got the plans to start working on the album. So the EP is kind of, it's an interesting one. It's kind of a summary of us over the last, kind of 4 or 5 years or something. And we're starting to, write slightly different things now that we've got David back in the band. And so there's going to be a slightly kind of new chapter for us coming later this year when we start working on that sort of stuff. Going to get into writing for the album, and hopefully get to a point where we can get into the studio with it, maybe hopefully before the end of the year or around the end of the year, and kind of hopefully continue the trajectory with the album. As Matt said, we want to get on, boosting some of our connections and getting more shows further afield around the country. Need to get out to some more places. There's a whole world out there of local scenes and venues that we need to experience for ourselves. I think there's East Anglia has been fairly well trodden by us now, I think. So we are looking to get further afield this year for sure.
I mean, we're looking forward to Cambridge in a couple of weeks' time. Like, we're definitely looking forward to that. I've been talking about getting
27th
that
of
over to
March.
6-6. Yes, very much looking forward to it. So I've been saying to the boys, we need to get into Cambridge for a long time. Because my mate lives in Cambridge currently, so he's always like, guys, you need to come play. You need to come play. You need to come play. So yeah, we're very much looking forward to that. Having an hour, doing an hour's worth of songs, on the other hand, is probably going to kill me, but it's fine. It'll be all right.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great.
Well, you're with, so we've got, so obviously by Virtue Fall, Kadama, we have Own Your Life and In God's Way are also playing on that bill. So it's a very good heavy bill. We're grateful to have you guys come down to the 6-6 bar. So if you're watching this and you're a big fan of any of those bands, make sure you grab your tickets in advance. Always useful to let us know numbers in advance. Always great. And all I can say is really big thank you to you two for joining me today. And of course, I will see you at the venue because I will be there for load-in to help and make sure everything's going smoothly on the day. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having us on. We'll see you at the 6-6.